Welcome to Creating a World of Women of Significance on Global Voice Radio with your host, Margie O'Kane. Listen and learn how you can create a legacy for women and girls around the world. Women of significance can change the world. Here is your host, Margie O'Kane.
Hello everyone and welcome. I'm your host, Margie O'Kane. My shows are all about expanding qualities undeveloped within you, unleashing your potential and continuously improving self. This is another in the series, A Blueprint for a Life of Significance, a guide to continuously recode your life. How do you live your life? Do you believe that you are the cause of everything in your life? Or do you think what happens to you is dependent on those people and circumstances around you? What you believe makes all the difference in how you live your life. A lot of us live a large proportion of our lives at effect, responding to the whims, desires, or emotional states of others. Alternatively, living at course means you are decisive about creating what you want in life. You see the world as a place of constant opportunities, which you are in a position to do. And if certain paths do not unfold as you would like, you then take action to change the path to something else. You also take responsibility for all the difficult things in life, even if it seems like the fault of others, or at the very least, you take responsibility for how you react to those difficulties, be they people or events. If you are at effect, there is always a reason why life has not worked out. There is always something or someone at fault, blocking you from getting what you want to achieve. This leads to a sense of powerlessness and despondency about life, and you lament, if only he or she were different, or why does this always happen to me? You are in effect a victim of circumstances. Our mind represents what we see or have seen. If we were going on a holiday and walking along the beach, you would feel the sand within your toes, the wind blowing on your skin, the smell of freshly applied sunscreen, and maybe hearing the crushing sounds of the waves as they broke on the shore. All these representations determine what it is we focus on. Your mind filters the information and is then represented to us, which determines whether or not we are happy, sad, angry, or relaxed. The mind will filter the information as a result of life events, beliefs, decisions, attitudes, memories, values, and language, all of which will have an impact of the way it is represented to us. A good example of representation could be a bull with horns. My grandparents had a farm, and when I was a child, I was told that bulls, when they were pounding the ground, would charge at you. So as a child, I would avoid putting myself in that situation where I was faced with this type of danger. This instilled belief meant that whenever I saw a bull, I assumed it was not safe to cross its path. As a result, it would charge at me. In this example, the beliefs were instilled by my grandfather as a child, and the memories I had of that situation affected my decisions moving forward. Your internal representation creates a state, a feeling, or an emotion. So in this example, when I needed to cross a field with a bull in it, I became very apprehensive, scared, and frightened all at the same time. As a result of this state, a physiology would have been created. If I recall the time when I had to contemplate cutting through a field with a bull in it, I have no doubt in my mind what my expressions would have been. They'd be vacant. I'd be licking my lips as I do when I'm frightened. I would have blinked a lot less than normal as I contemplated what I should do. This physiology then creates a behavior. So in this case, it wants to run as quickly as possible past the field until I felt safe. What is interesting is that our representation system determines what we focus on, and as a result, it will determine how we act immediately following that chain of thought. What is interesting in the way in which your mind generalizes certain things, like the way a door opens, or even the way in which you assume the steering wheel in a car. Only yesterday, when parking my car, I saw a woman get into the left side of her vehicle before driving away. I had to double take for a minute. You guessed it, the car was from America. This was a classic generalization where I assumed the car would be right-handed, as this is the way my mind had previously represented it to me based on repetition. For me, where I have previously woken up in a bad mood or felt like today is going to be a bad day, then I can be curious to think about what caused this, what triggered this. If my thoughts have been constructed in a way that is formulating a negative connotation, then I can change what I focus on to change this feeling. Representation is not the reality, therefore I can change it. If I think about it, I will create it. If I use my internal voice to project positive ways of thinking, such as, I'm going to have a great day, then I know I will. For me, the real eye-opener is my own unconscious mind. If I don't want something to happen, then the chances are it will, because I'm focusing on it unconsciously. As the mind takes everything personally, it seems this is an order or a type of instruction. Therefore, if I can reprogram the way in which I represent the situation towards something positive, then the mind will take this as an instruction and it will happen. You can choose to take control or be in charge of your life and make things happen, or you can sit back and watch as your life evolves. If you stay in your comfort zone, you know what to expect. It feels secure, requires little effort, but limits your options. You stay in at effect. However, if you go to your stretch zone, challenge yourself, take small steps towards your goal and the outcome that you want to achieve, then you are at cause. You are the one creating your own successes, progress, and achievement. Successful people make things happen. This is the root of all the concept of cause and effect. Where the cause is active, about results and successes, where effect is passive and about reasons and excuses for not achieving. The comfort zone is a familiar and predictable place where people often stay without thinking about it. There are many reasons why people stay in the comfort zone, including fear and habit. For me, stepping out of the comfort zone is about active, conscious choice. Choosing to be great when someone asks how you are as opposed to not bad. Being a cause is about taking responsibility for your actions, empowering yourself, taking control of your life. People who have achieved success tend to do that. People get what they focus on when they make the decision to be in charge. Being at effect is blaming other people when success is not achieved, making excuses and not taking responsibility for events. People are in the comfort zone when they just muddle along. They're only partially happy because they do not want to upset the apple cart. Sometimes it is necessary to do this and leave the comfort zone by taking risks in order to achieve success and real happiness. People live up to their expectations. That is, if people expect to achieve, they will achieve. In order to move fully to the cause position and meet your expectations, it is necessary to leave the comfort zone. The comfort zone is best explained as a place or state in between cause and effect. Sometimes a person may take action if and when they feel comfortable about it being at cause. If they feel uncomfortable with taking action, they may decide to be at effect. Being in the comfort zone is more or less a grey area or limbo land. One does not want to challenge oneself unless feeling really sure and comfortable with the situation, or rather certain of the outcome will be a positive one. If the situation is uncertain, my guess is their person decides not to take action or take action without taking the responsibility. That way, if things go bad, they can blame someone else. They either rather blame others than be flexible and change their ways of doing things. I learned some things about myself understanding this concept. Basically, I'm more aware that I need to be more at cause and not at effect. I guess in many ways I'm often in the comfort zone and will from now on be more aware of I need to be at cause. I learned also about the senses I use are the same as others, but we have all different internal representation of what we experience, see or do. I must admit I often have been thinking, we're actually seeing all the same things. How can she mean that when I think this, when we experience all the same things? I also now understand that the mind does not process negatives, so I am consciously changing the way I speak. I'm also taking full responsibility of my own actions. It seems we now live in a place where it is easier to blame others for our mishaps. As a mentor, I notice that my clients almost tend to pass their problems of burden to me. They treat me like I'm a magician or wizard where I can solve all the issues just by waving a magic wand. However, I now know that this isn't the case. It is my responsibility to guide them in solving their problems or issues, but it's their responsibility to act and be responsible for their actions. My understanding is that as individuals, we all take responsibility for our own life situations. We can also influence and change the situations we find ourselves in. When we take control of our lives and take direct action to solve problems and stretch ourselves, which will lead to ultimate success, we can say we are in a cause state. However, when we fail to take responsibility for our actions or address issues directly, which in turn create unhappy circumstances for ourselves, which we blame others for, we can say we're stuck in the effect state. This really rang true for me when I took part in the cause and effect exercise. As I looked at the areas of my life where I'm currently stuck in effect, it suddenly struck me that in the past, when I was successful, most things I had listed on this side were actually on the cause side. This is a very powerful realization to me, and it is very clear that I had stopped actively trying to find out ways of achieving results in these areas of my life, and therefore I found myself in unacceptable situations. This concept was reinforced to me when I reflect on past conversations with friends and work colleagues who expressed that they were unhappy with their personal life or their job, but blamed everything and everyone for the situation they found themselves in. I think a large part of their thinking was due to the fact that they were very much submerged in their comfort zone status and scared to make changes because the fear of the unknown. But also, as this attitude is commonplace in society, they may not even have ever considered for 1 minute that they had the responsibility to facilitate change or even had the ability to do so. I understand that the current situation I find myself in is based on my perception of any given situation, which is reassuring as I know this can be changed. I never realized before my unconscious mind was so instrumental in shaping all of those things in my life. Therefore, I have a greater awareness of ensuring I feed it with positive thoughts and information. Every time we push the cause outside of us, we miss the opportunity to learn and create something different to really get what we want. We are giving the power to somebody else. We are giving the power of our lives to somebody else. When things are going well, it's very easy to be at cause and be aware of our responsibility on the results we get. But what about when something bad happens? This is when we point out to everything else, everyone else. When we come up with all the reasons why this bad thing is happening to us. So the next time something bad happens, ask yourself, in which way have I influenced this to make this happen? What can I learn from it now? What can I do different or better in future to avoid it? The minute we accept that the sum of our choices, both conscious and unconscious choices, have led us to where we are today, that's the minute we're living at cause. Yet we can find ourselves stuck, spinning our wheels and feeling like no matter how hard we push, we end up back at the start. After a while, the pushing exhausts us. We wonder if we're ever going to get it together. We end up in a depleting cycle of self-judgment, criticism, until we bounce back and start the cycle of pushing forward again. Look around you. What's working in your life? What's not working yet? Everything is a result of what we thought and did yesterday. Tomorrow will be a result of our thoughts and actions today. What specifically can you do right now to improve the area of your life you would like to? Write it down and do it. Here is a specific example of language and how to detect whether you are acting at cause in your life or simply an effect. How do you use cause and effect language? Listen carefully to your language. An example of someone who is in effect. That person makes me feel bad when they look at me like that. Yikes, the person speaking that sentence has now painted themselves as a victim of being at mercy of whoever looks at them. They've given up all their control of how to feel to the other person. Now, with a simple look, the other all-powerful person can make the speaker feel rotten. That's not good. Here's how to rephrase that sentence for the person to acknowledge they are in control. When that person looks at me, I choose to feel bad inside. The speaker now acknowledges that they are choosing to feel bad. And you know what? When you choose one way, it means you can choose another way. I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. Next, the speaker can choose to feel good, at least neutral, after recognizing they have a choice. Who in their right mind would decide to feel crummy if they knew they had a choice? Here's a few more effect sentences for you to rephrase. Whenever he comes home late, he makes me angry at him. Whenever she looks away during our conversation, she frustrates me. When my spouse goes out with their friends and without telling me where they're going, he worries me. Okay, your job is to rephrase these. If you are using these effect phrases in your language, detect them and stop. Listen to others as they speak. Their language gives them away whether they view themselves as in control or as victims. Applying just this one tip contains the power to change your life. As with focus, the way you deal with cause and effect is a critical ingredient in whether or not you are able to create the life you want. Whenever someone comes to me and tells me that something's unpleasant is happening to his and her life and wants me to help them with it, what they are really telling me is that they are effect of some cause over which they have no control. What they want from me is some magic that treats symptoms rather, whether it is anxiety, depression, fear, lack of prosperity, bad relationships, or anything else. But the first thing I look at is whether the person is at cause or at effect. Do they see themselves as being the creator of what happened or a victim of circumstances? When you see yourself as being at the effect of some cause over which you have little or no control, you feel helpless. In fact, you actually become helpless because whatever you believe tends to manifest in reality. When you see yourself as being effect, you automatically filter out all the possible ways in which you could create something different and all the ways that you have personal power. You do not see them at all. They disappear from your awareness as if they did not exist at all. Those who think they are at effect look outside of themselves for some cause on which to blame what is happening. When you do that, such a cause will always appear. And even if it isn't really the cause, the result is that you feel helpless, and you are helpless. Those who believe they are at cause, of course, do not contact me for their help in the first place. They realize that even if they cannot see the connection, whatever is being created in their life comes from something in them. And if they can find what it is, they can change it. Usually it involves what they have focused their attention on. So my first step in helping someone is to convince them that whatever is happening is not coming from outside of them, and that they have creative control, even though it may not look like this in the case. This is not an easy task. I sometimes have to back and forth communication with people who continue to insist that there's nothing they can do. They have tried everything. I suggest, and that they are hopeless. They become angry with me that I can even suggest that they can be in charge of their life. People who think they are at effect use words like, I can't a lot. Another favourite is, I tried. When you say I can't, your brain steps right up and supplies you with lots of reasons why you can't. And it also blocks the creative part of your mind from figuring out how you can. Thus, the fact that you can't comes true, further reinforcing your belief that you really can't. My suggestion to such people is that instead of saying I can't, they begin to ask, how can I? And keep asking until their brain supplies them with the answer they want. I tried is another favourite of people who think they are at effect. The entire presupposition behind I tried is failure. No one who succeeds ever says, I tried. They say, I did it. Trying begins with the belief in failure. To try, you must make pictures in your head of failing. My suggestion is to make pictures in your head of accomplishing whatever you want to accomplish. When you do this, you give your brain a signal to figure out how to do it. When you try, you give your brain a signal to figure out how ways to fail. Even if you find this hard to believe, begin to act as if you really are at cause. Assume that you are in control and ask yourself, how can I, until you get the answer. So now you have huge clues to success. You need to focus your mind on what you want, what you don't want or are afraid of. You need to begin with the assumption that you are at cause, that you can decide what to think, what to picture inside, what to focus on, and that when you do this, your brain will figure out how to make it whatever you focus on happen. Having spent a great deal of my early life thinking I was at effect, at least in certain areas of my life, and then seeing the profound change that happened once I realized that I was at cause, I just needed to take the reins of my life and act as if I was really at cause. I want you to know that if you do these things, you will change your life in ways you never thought possible. Why would someone focus on what they don't want and see themselves as being at cause or at causes which they have no control? Why would they be like that? Fear. They are afraid. And what causes fear? Trauma, wounding, abuse. If you have suffered some kind of trauma, you are likely to think that the world is full of danger and you have to watch out for it, which causes your mind to focus on what you don't want and that you are a potential victim of it. In a world, ordinary people are being dictated to because they have allowed someone else or something else to make decisions for them. Abdicating on their right to be responsible may have occurred in the recent past or long time ago. Either way, they choose not to take action when action was required. Whichever it is, our inability to be responsible will dictate our future. The question I have for you is, where is your pain right now? What have you not said? What action have you not taken? What decisions are you procrastinating on? I remember this quote, and I believe it is attributed to General Patton. Either take responsibility or take orders. I'm surprised at how many people don't get what it means to be responsible. I was with a client recently and we were discussing an incident in their business, and I asked the question, so how did you cause this to happen? They looked at me blankly and said, I've had nothing to do with it. Oh, they just missed it. We are either at the cause of our lives and what happens around us, or we have the effect. After a lengthy discussion, he became almost evangelical. He wanted to share his epiphany with everybody. It was a tough lesson, and one that cost him time, money, and energy. Cause and effect is a fundamental concept for me. I think it is one of the biggest things for producing change. When something happens to you and you acknowledge that thing, then this puts you at effect. You're pretty much powerless to do anything. But when something happens and you ask yourself, how did I make that happen? That question helps you find the cause, which will then help you change your behavior. If you constantly blame someone or someone else for your pain, you're literally becoming powerless to do anything about it. One of the most common traits of highly successful people is that they are at cause. They place themselves there. For example, I could be having some sort of communication issue with you. Placing myself at cause, I would naturally instantly be empowered to look for the solutions to the communication issue. Placing blame is a really easy cop-out and keeps you at effect, keeping you powerless to change the communication issue. My dad used to say, putting the cause and effect equation simply and succinctly, he said, honey, if you find yourself in a problem, get yourself out. Another wise person said, when you find yourself in a ditch, stop digging. These sayings are both true because whatever your situation, your behavior has got to you in that particular point. The truth is that there is no way to prove how much choice we have in determining our future. However, there is ample evidence to show that those people who take the attitude of responsibility for everything that happens in their life are also the people that are fulfilled and successful. Being a cause also helps us realize much of the emotional burden that we place on ourselves in regard to our responsibility for others. Indeed, we must always do the best we can for others, but ultimately, they themselves are responsible for how they choose to respond to anything we say or do. If a friend is unhappy despite our best efforts, cheer him up. We do not need to hold the emotional stress of thinking that we must do more. Do I always live my life at cause? No, not a chance. Of course, I'm not suggesting that putting yourself at cause will make your life perfect. You will still encounter challenges along the way. But the more you are at cause, the more resourceful and effective you will be in meeting them. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, who was imprisoned at Auschwitz and other concentration camps for 5 years. In that situation, he saw the worst of humanity in the behavior of the guards. Many of his fellow prisoners gave up, or acted as if they had abandoned all their human feelings in the struggle to survive, as we would expect in such a terrible predicament. But Frankl observed other prisoners who, despite being the worst place in the world, were still able to find meaning in their lives and could still act with kindness and courage. What he saw of the best and worst in people in the camps inspired him to move away from Freud's belief that the driving force of our actions is instinct and urges. Instead, he came to believe that man's deepest desire is to search for meaning and purpose. Later, he wrote that great book, Man's Search for Meaning, in which he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Following on that idea, Stephen Covey says, quality of life depends on what happens in the space between stimulus and response. What NLP will give you in some practical ways to choose what happens between stimulus and response. And the more you exercise and develop that choice, the more your freedom to choose increases and the more you move over to the cause side of the equation. Rather than focusing on the past, that's over and done with. The questions you ask when you are at cause focus your attention on what is happening now, where you can actually do something to make a difference, and on what you want to change for the future. Focus on solutions rather than details of problems, and with any challenge, except the very simplest ones, they're more helpful to get you where you want to be. Let me ask you, which side are you on? Who's in control of your life? Who's in charge of the results you produce? Are you the pilot or the passenger in your life? I encourage you to take the decision today to switch to the cause side of the equation. Live your life to the fullest and be happy. Take risks. It's always better to know you made 1 million attempts and failed than sit back and do nothing and wonder what if and be full of regrets. Here is to living your life at cause and creating the life you dreamed of. Do I always live my life at cause? No, I don't. The clear majority of the time I live at cause. Okay. But I can identify times when I need to go from cause, stay in cause. To sum up, being at cause means you are decisive in creating what you want in life and take responsibility for what you have achieved or will achieve. You see the world as a place of opportunity and you move towards achieving what you desire. If things are not unfolding as you would like, you take action and explore other possibilities. Above all, you know you have choice in what you do and how you react to people and events. If you are at effect, you may blame others or circumstances for your bad moods or for what you have not achieved or for your life in general. You may feel powerless or depend on each other for you to feel good about yourself or other life. If only my spouse, my boss, my co-workers, my parents, my children understood me and helped me achieve my dreams or did what I wanted or expected me to need, then life would be fantastic. But being at cause means you have choices in your life. You can choose what is best for you while ensuring the choice is ecological for those around you, those in your community and your society. That is, you consider the consequences of your actions on others while not taking responsibility for their emotional well-being. Believing you are responsible for the emotional well-being of others places a heavy burden on you and can cause a great deal of stress. In answer to NLP co-founder Richard Banner's question of who's driving the bus, you can say, I am. So when you place yourself at course and something happens to you don't like, what kind of questions are you likely to be asking yourself as you start to make sense of what's happened? There are more likely to be questions like, what's going on here? How has this come about? What can I do to change things? Or even, what do I want instead of this in the future? Thanks for listening to Be at Cause. Remember, it's not your success that matters, but your significance. Reach out to me at margieokane.com. I'll be delighted to support you in your journey for a life of significance. Again, thank you for listening. See you for the next in the series of Blueprint for a Life of Significance, a guide to continuously recode your life. Margie O'Kane, signing off.
Thank you for listening. Join Margie O'Kane, host of Creating a World of Women of Significance, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern on Global Voice Radio, where your voice is heard.